Right, I don't know if I can go through this without crying, but we'll try the last chapter. And for anyone who hasn't been following, this is The Visit by Adrian Plass. A wonderful author. So, he loved him, and he cried for him, and he bled for him. So now we come to the final chapter, chapter 6. I try not to cry. The last private goodbyes had been said. Today was the final day of our founder's visit, and 20 or 30 of us who had been closer to him were gathered in the church room to hear him speak for the last time. As far as the rest of the world was concerned, he had already gone. This was a sort of a close family farewell. Now, thank God, I knew that I was part of that family, and I was more than happy to sit quietly at the back near the door. I won't tell you what was said to me in that last proper conversation, but I will say it took most of the dread I had been feeling about his going. But how was he going? Where was he going? I didn't know. He didn't seem to hear me when I asked. He just said I should get people together in the church room that evening and put a glass of water next to a chair that wasn't liable to break as he leaned back. He knew that most of our church furniture had seen better days. I'd done all that, and there he was, catching my eye over the head of the others, as he leaned back with an expression of mock fear on his face. The church held, I'm pleased to say, and there was a buzz of conversation which suddenly, gradually, died away, until there was a complete hush in the room. And for a time he said nothing. He just gazed quietly at us, with a strange mixture of pleasure and sadness. Finally he sighed gently, straightened in his chair, and began to speak. Today I must go, but before I leave I want to talk to you for a little while about sin. Funny word, sin, isn't it? Old-fashioned somehow. You do all know what sin is, don't you? He paused. The stillness that fell over the assembly suggested we might know what sin was. He went on. I certainly know what it is. At least I had to fight it, just as some of you have fought it, or tried to. You know, during this visit, some people have said to me, and I appreciate their honesty, it's all right for you, you never sinned. You had it easy. You're the boss's son. A sort of divine nepotism, I suppose they mean. Now the people who say they have got a point in a way. I do love my father, so much that it would be agony for me to hurt him. But I want you to realize something, and I'd like you to explain it to others so that they understand as well. You tell them when you feel the moment is right. His eyes filled with memory, held us silent, waiting. You see, I had the capability, the opportunity, and the power to do more, to have more, to indulge myself more, than anyone who has ever lived or ever will live. One of your new translations of the Bible says that after I was baptized, my dear cousin John, I had a spirit unlimited. Right, that's exactly what I had. Spirit unlimited. Power unlimited. I tell you, I was bursting with it. I went off into that desert like a teenager, wobbling away on a huge motorbike that he hasn't learned to control yet. Out there in the wilderness, I had to learn how to handle all this power that was still surging through me. Out there where there was nothing, I had to face the fact I could have anything and everything I wanted. Women, money, possessions, the lot. They were all mine for the taking. And don't you believe it, anyone who says that I wasn't tempted, because I was. I felt every desire for every human indulgence that you do, and I fought it out in the desert on my own. That was part of the package, you see, part of the whole arrangement, that I would face it head on, see it for what it was, and choose to turn away from it. It was wrong. Not some of the time, not even most of the time, but on every single solitary occasion. He set his face, he relaxed into a smile, and an idea occurred to him. I'll tell you something that makes me laugh. Those pictures, you must have seen them, of me being tempted during the 40 days and 40 nights. I'm the cool-looking one with a whiter-than-white robe, dismissing temptation with a rather regal wave of a hand. Obviously you've seen that one. He joined in the general laughter, and after a sip of water from the glass beside him, continued quietly and seriously. Please don't believe it was like that. I roasted during the day, and I froze at night. I was hungry, often thirsty, and always lonely. Most of the time I grovelled on the floor of the desert in a sort of sick daze. And all the time I knew that this incredible power pack inside of me would give me anything I needed or wanted. Warmth, food, companionship, of any kind I chose, all available whenever I wanted them, on the spot. I tell you the truth. I knew what kind of eternity meant in that place. It seemed to go on for ever and ever and ever. But I didn't give in. Shall I tell you why I didn't give in? Shall I tell you what made me strong during those endless days and nights? It was love. Just that. Love. I loved my father more than anything in the world. I loved him with all my heart and soul and mind and strength. And I loved you. I loved my fellow men, even then, as much as I loved myself. You see, my father had said, "Son, do it." So I did it, because I trusted him, and I wanted to be obedient. Nevertheless, it took a long time to win the battle completely, but in the end I cracked it. I broke through to the point where I was totally at one with God, wanting only what He wanted, seeing things the way that He saw them, and ready to do anything He wanted me to do. Immediately, And this is typical of the way the head office works. In came the angels with a packet of sandwiches and a change of underwear. You watch out for those angels, by the way. They wear some funny disguises sometimes. I saw one the other day with a bottle of meths on Victoria Station, folding his dirty, tattered wings and trying to find a corner to settle in for the night. He was silent for a moment, looking at us as if we should say something at this point, but no one did. Later on at home I read the last bit of the 25th chapter of Matthew's Gospel, and I began to understand it for the first time. He smiled wryly. See, I do know a bit about sin. You see, I do know a bit about sin, as I said. I remember once when I first came, I was sitting with my 12 lads and talking about the law of Moses, I mean. I think one or two of them were hoping that my message was going to be, anything goes, folks. A sort of wild universal party presided by an amiable old loon in the sky who didn't much care what people got up to. You should have seen their faces as I spelled out the house rules in detail. Now, I said, not only can you not kill, you're not allowed to want to kill, to feel the anger that wants you to murder. Now, adultery and the lust that leads to it are sins of equal value. Now, and so on, and so on. They weren't happy, I can tell you. Shifting from ham to ham, I think the expression is. At the end, dear old Peter takes me on one side and says, I'm afraid I'm out of this. I'm not good enough. Does God really want us to be that good? Yes, I said, He does. Long pause. Well, I won't make it then, will I? No, I said, you won't. Poor Peter. He looked so downcast at this that I went on to explain something to him. And I'd like to explain the same thing to you now. First, the most important thing to do is what God tells you to do. I told that Peter to follow me, and that's what he was doing. I hadn't said, get yourself perfect and then follow me. Just follow me. The next thing about the impossibility of ever being good enough for God. It was very important for Peter to know that God's demands are for nothing less than perfection. I wanted him to understand later on what my death meant for him, how much I loved him, how far I was ready to go to fill the gap between what he was and what he needed to be, if he was ever going to meet the Father face to face. I'd like all of you to understand that as well. Let me try to make it clearer. Suppose you and I have known each other for years. You often visit my house. In fact, I've given you a key so often that you come and go as you please. Now, over the years, you've regularly stolen things from my home. Sometimes big, some small, some so trivial as to seem not quite important. I've never been to your house. You've never invited me. But one day, you're sitting at home and there's a knock at the door, and it's me. And I've come to have a showdown with you. Once inside, I start to gather together all the things that belong to me, and I stacked them together in the middle of the room, right in front of you. Right through the house I go, opening cupboards, ransacking drawers, reaching under the beds, and soon every little thing that you've ever pinched from me is piled on the floor between us. Finally, I reach over and take the biro from your top pocket and add that to the pile. Despite your protest that it was borrowed and doesn't really count. So there we stand by this mountain of stolen goods, and you're pretty troubled by now. What will I do? Will I call the police? Hit you, perhaps? Did you steal all this stuff from me? There's no point denying it. Yes, you mumble. I'm sorry, what are you going to do? Forgive you. I just wanted you to know that I knew. Now we can start again. He looked searching at the faces ranged around the room. Then he spoke very softly. And I know all about each one of you too. I know what you've done, what you want, what hurts you, what you're afraid of. I know what you need. I know you because in a way that's impossible to explain, I almost became each of you. During that 3 hours that I spent dying all those years ago on the hill. You happened in me. You were punished in my body. The time I spent on the cross was a nightmare of congealed darkness and despair. A nightmare filled with selfishness, hate, murder, rape, filth of the most unbelievable kind, as well as apathy, ignorance, and all your trivial unkindnesses that never seemed to matter at the time. In those 3 hours, I knew what it was to be an addict, a pusher, a torturer, and a victim. How it felt to destroy and to hurt and to damage and gloat over the agony of others. I knew it. I saw it. I felt it. And in the middle of it all, I lost the one I was doing it for. He couldn't bear to look at me. And I was so, so alone. Someone was crying quietly at the back of the room as he stood up and took a step towards us. There's a lot more I'd like to say to you, but I won't now. Just 2 things. Can I ask you to do something for me? Please read the book. Get a version that suits you, one that you can understand, and I promise you with all of my heart that as you read it, I'll meet you there and we'll talk again. The other thing is the most important message I have for you. Look after each other. Forgive each other. Love each other. Don't hurt me. God bless you all and look after you until I'm able to come back again. After that he went very quickly. As he passed me, he paused, smiled slightly, and said quietly, "You've changed." Yes, that was all I could say. Then he was gone through the door into the darkness, and the visit was over. Hallelujah. And that's what this inspirational group is about. Isn't me reading books, but about getting the version that suits you. And that's not me bragging because I've a load more over there. But get the version that suits you. And as you read it, you meet with Jesus. You don't read about him. He meets with you. And every day we should have something to say about what he said to us. And at first it can be very small steps. Something which you think is not important can be vitally important to somebody else. So please share it. Let's get reading our Bibles and sharing our Bible verses and sharing the things which are important to us. So thank you. Thank you for letting me have the privilege to read the visit. And I pray that you got out of it something which is vitally important. If not just the last paragraph where it says read the book, not the visit, the Bible book. I'm out of here. God bless you all. God bless. Bye.